Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have an upload every day. And I think they're pretty informative and terrifying every day. So, I have your everyday upload. Before we get into that, though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and my merch store to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Those links are in the description below. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1, 2, and 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeffrey Nadolny. They are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. The links to those are also in the description as well. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? Today's upload is going to be a little different. I'd really like to discuss the way the Dogman hunts, or stalks. They are kind of a pack animal. A lot of encounters are singular, but I believe when hunting, they hunt in like in a pack or a hunting party. They are very militaristic as they hunt, tactical, intelligent, and I believe there are two perfect examples of how a dogman hunts, or how intelligent dogmen hunt. Excuse me. I want to share the two examples first, and then I have an encounter to share with you to kind of emphasize it, because they are extremely educated, extremely tactical, and it's very scary. It's scary to think how intelligent these things are, and they're just roaming through the woods at any given moment. So put your seatbelt on and get ready for the ride. The first case I'd like to share of how intelligent a dogman is when it hunts is Mrs. Brenda Hamilton, 77 years old. She always took her daily meditation in the wee hours of the morning during a sunrise walk down an Indian Run Road, a country road in Beaufort County, North Carolina, just a few miles from Pongo Christian Academy, the school where she was a teacher, mentor, and administrator for many decades. The sun rose on Friday, February 15, 2019, and Mrs. Hamilton was there to greet it. But her walk went horribly wrong. She was attacked and partially consumed alive by some sort of animal. Neighbors found her in a ditch with a freshly killed nutria nearby. 2 days later, she sadly succumbed to her injuries. Since that time, no definitive information has been released concerning what animal or animals were responsible for her death, and the investigation has been closed. Those in the community, especially her family and school, believe there is something that's not being said. We want answers. This is a crisis situation. Therefore, state, federal, and local officials should act accordingly. Public meetings in local areas be held within 30 days and publicized according to sunshine laws to allow citizens to voice concerns about their safety, ask questions, and offer information on the case. Full disclosure of all parties involved in the investigation, including state and federal agencies, first responders, medical examiners, those who collected DNA evidence, and all others involved. All agencies involved and identified in the investigation be represented at local meetings and able to answer questions. Full disclosure of the laboratory name and technician that performed the DNA testing. Full disclosure of the physical DNA test results. Warnings be posted to indicate danger. Right after Miss Hamilton passed away, the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office confirmed that DNA testing showed the animal was canine, but that further testing needed to be done. 2 dogs from the neighborhood, whom Mrs. Hamilton was familiar with, were quarantined but released after thorough DNA testing. Every dog in the vicinity was tested, but all cleared. The family waited patiently to hear more. Finally, on May 2nd, a local news station reported that the investigation had been closed. In a small town where families are on a first-name basis with law enforcement, seeing this news on TV, especially with no answers, hurt all the more. This less than stellar investigation of a horrific event in a small eastern North Carolina town has left questions. Why was the investigation so short-lived? Why were officials so quick to dismiss the magnitude a sweet lady got mauled and killed? Why was there no attack animal named? Why were local people not involved, and why were their accounts of investigators not taken into consideration? Why is there a widely accepted public belief that the USFWS Red Wolf introduction has a lot to do with this tragedy? What kind of animal killed Mrs. Hamilton? Is it safe to take a walk? Can our kids go out and play? Can we trust our government to protect us? We the people are not satisfied with the results of the investigation and demand the following steps be taken. Not only are we saddened by the horrible death of Mrs. Brenda Hamilton, we are also in fear of any neighbors that walk down our country road. It is our hope as a Christian community that this investigation was conducted properly, thoroughly, professionally, and ethically by all involved. However, we are wary of many circumstances surrounding this horrible incident and the manner in which it was investigated. From the Hamilton family and the surrounding communities, we approach this situation with an open mind. Mrs. Hamilton was a true pillar of her community. There are tons of photo albums to prove it. Her life's work touched countless lives, because she stood for and lived for what she believed in, her faith, her family, her community, and her Pongo Raiders. Out of all due respect, please give us some answers. The next case that shows the efficiency of these creatures. The 11th of May, 2020. Dr. Nancy Shaw, 62, was found dead by the side of the road in a small town of Lyons, southeast of Atlanta, in the early hours of last Thursday. Police officer patrolling the area found Dr. Shaw's car abandoned on the road with the engine running and the door open. Authorities say she was killed by a pack of dogs that were seen roaming the area. Police have not yet revealed the extent of Dr. Shaw's injuries, but said they are consistent with an animal attack. A Georgia doctor was found dead in a ditch after she was attacked and killed by a pack of dogs. Dr. Nancy Shaw, 62, was found dead by the side of the road in the small town of Lyons, southeast of Atlanta, in the early hours of last Thursday. A police officer patrolling the area found Dr. Shaw's car abandoned on the road with the engine still running and the door open. Her body was found in a ditch nearby. Police immediately recognized her as a long-term doctor at the Meadows Regional Medical Center. Authorities say she was killed by a pack of dogs that were seen roaming the area. It is not clear what caused Dr. Shaw to get out of the car. Authorities have not yet revealed the extent of Dr. Shaw's injuries, but say they were consistent with an animal attack. We are actively trying to locate some dogs that were seen running loose in the area around this same time to see if there was any evidence of it. Lyons Police Chief Wesley Walker told the local outlet Southeast Georgia Today. We do believe that a couple of dogs do have collars on, so we feel like they belong to somebody, but haven't had any luck finding them yet. We've asked for the medical examiner to do an autopsy to cover all bases, but it appears it was from injuries from the attack of the animal. Police say Dr. Shaw would often stop by the local police station to make sure the officers were all healthy. She was that kind of a person. She was a caring person. She was our friend, Walker told WTOC. When I realized who it was, I was devastated. Now, some similarities. First, we'll talk about the hunt. Both were found in the wee hours of the morning in a ditch. Discarded like trash. And I hate saying that because both of these people were kind people and did a lot for their communities. They were both torn apart. Brenda Hamilton partially consumed. Now, the strange thing is if you think about all of the cases that have happened so recently, we'll just go Jimtown Road quickly. Tony Aarons and Amber Miller. Tony Aarons was partially consumed as well. Amber Miller was torn apart as well as Tony Aarons. But back to these two cases, the similarities are incredible. Just incredible. The cases were all, as the newspaper says, thorough, or news agencies, thorough autopsies were performed. But the cases both were just sped through and kind of just put on a shelf in the back of the closet. Especially the doctor from Georgia. The reason why the Brenda Hamilton case had still been in the news 3 years later was because their community didn't want to let up, and I cannot blame them. I think that if there were more communities like Beaufort County, I think that we may get the answers. Just imagine if Jimtown Road, just imagine if those people in that area in Cott County, Tennessee, had the willingness or the disappointment and anger that the same people had in Beaufort County. We may be getting somewhere if, you've in Cott County, you've got two cases in the same area, a couple months apart, that fit exactly how all of these other things fit. But we're not talking about the lack of the ability of the government to solve a case, or at least to fill us in, because they've already solved it. They just don't want to tell us. But what we're talking about is the efficiency. Nobody heard anything. These people were just torn apart, ripped apart, alive. Brenda Hamilton was alive. So was Amber Miller. Tony Aarons was not. Neither was Dr. Shaw. These animals are magnificent hunters. They are at the top of the food chain, I believe, in the woods of North America and everywhere else of the world. I think there may be some cross points with Sasquatch, but I don't think that there is any competition for food with the two. I really don't. The Dogman is just a very superior kind of tracker, hunter, very technical killer. And that's scary. It's very scary. Now, the encounter I want to share with you is proof of how tactical, how technical, how militarized these things are. And intelligent, how intelligent they are. This is a case that I've narrated 2 or 3 times. I've had the gentleman on my show. It's a case that just sticks with me because it shows so much information. And we've gotten a lot of new subscribers who may not have heard it. But it kind of fits in with these very terrible, heinous acts by the Dogman. First, I'd like to say I've been a long-time listener of your channel, and I am continuously entertained and captivated by your narrations and videos. Anyway, I had a Dogman sighting a few years ago in 2010. I was working in an ambulance at the time with a partner, and only recently did my partner divulge his side of the story to me. After the sighting, I became obsessed on trying to figure out what it was we saw, whereas my ambulance partner wanted nothing to do with it and completely shut the topic down any time I tried to bring it up. Until about a week ago, I finally got him to cave and tell me what he saw that night. I've only shared this story a couple of times, and this is the first time it's been shared with the additional information. It's unique, at least I think, in that it takes place in Connecticut, not exactly Dogman Central. So the first part will be my point of view, and the second will be from my partner. I'm a former paramedic who plays EMT on the weekends now. I always thought if I were to experience something paranormal at work, it would be in any one of the number of ambulances I've used on account of all of the souls that have passed through. My partner and I, this night, weren't that lucky. I used to work in a moderately sized city in central Connecticut, and our company covered surrounding towns and had contracts to cover inter-hospital transfers and things like that, much further away from our 911 coverage area. City itself is only a couple of 100,000 people with suburbs and a river valley, and then rural woods beyond. Nothing special. We had to respond to a fringe of our coverage area in another town in another corner of the state, literally nicknamed the Quiet Corner, because it is so low populated and very heavily wooded. After almost getting there, we wound up being canceled by a closer unit en route. It was 4:30 in the morning on a Wednesday on an autumn day of 2010. Where we were turning around was in a notoriously small one-stoplight town. The ride back to civilization from where we were was only 20 to 30 minute trip, but it's a long, straight, 2-lane state route with dim streetlights and thick forests on both sides, with occasional residents and very few small businesses. We turned off of State Route 44 and onto the road named Pumpkin Hill Road, which, after a couple of more turns onto side streets, was going to drop us off further down 44 in the direction we needed to be going. Surrounding us was state forest and a couple of dirt roads, a couple of small rivers, a small lake, and not an awful lot of houses. Houses that are there are spaced apart pretty well. I was riding in the passenger seat with my face in the laptop, writing our canceled tag, mentally preparing to go home after a long night. And my partner asked, "Do you see that?" and began to slow down. Pumpkin Hill was a gravel road that's fairly narrow, and we had jet black forest on both sides of us. Visibility in front of us was clear, but to the sides you couldn't see past the 5 or 6 foot tall hedgerows that lined the road beyond the guardrail. The cab was illuminated by the laptop, so I shut it and looked up, squinted a little, and there I saw it, only 100 feet or so in front of us, a very large dog. A very large dog that's silver/gray with straight cropped ears, with little tufts atop of them, walking away from us ever so slowly, with a very unusual gait, almost like it was limping. Damn thing had to be 4.5 feet at the shoulders. My partner slows to a crawl, thinking it's hurt, and maybe it has a tag or a collar. We thought surely such a magnificent beast had an owner. As we slowed to a crawl, some shit happened that I will never unsee or ever forget, and it's the day I started believing that not all things are what they seem. The idle of the ambulance isn't its usual roar. We're just creeping about 5 miles an hour and gaining. I was on the passenger side, and it was on my side of the road. The plan was for my partner to put the flashers on and for me to whistle or hoot to see if our new friend was acclimated to humans and needed help, or if he was street tough, and to let him be on his way. We closed the 100-foot gap to about 25 to 30 feet. As we closed our distance, and right at the 10-yard mark or so, my partner and I simultaneously got a sense of dread. I was suddenly very aware of how much shit I was in, and my blood turned cold. The hair on my arms and neck stood on end, my vision narrowed, and my heart started pumping well over 120 beats per minute. The fucking dog stood up. He just stood up. Not like a domestic dog or a bear or a domestic cat will. Their movements are kind of awkward when they stand, and they're usually pretty quick to go back down onto all fours after a couple of steps. And we do have black bear, but this definitely was not a black bear. It was far too big. This creature was meant to stand up, and he did it as fluently as you or I would. My view of this was from behind, and the bastard's shoulders would put an NFL defensive line to shame. It was a massive animal. My partner stopped the truck. The beast cocked its head to the side, ever so slightly to the left, revealing a single yellow/green glowing eye shine. Then turned to my side, the right side of the woods, and bolted. It was over as soon as it started. What my partner and I have always called the werewolf, we estimated it to be around 7.5 feet tall. Our ambulance was a little over 13-foot clearance, and the tufts of its ears lined up with where about our emergency lights were on the front of the top of the truck. The top of its head ended where about our windshield ended. Its shoulders were easily twice as wide as a man's, maybe 4.5 to 5 feet. Its back muscles were well developed, and it had a tapered waist, which led down to a bushy 3 to 4 foot long tail. And I keep referring to it as a he because it had enormous testicles, probably the size of basketballs. How it walked around without dragging those things on the ground, I have no idea. Its quadriceps, if I had to guess, was about the size of a man's waist, anywhere between 34 and 40 inches. Its legs bent backward like a canine's, and I could make out it had an Achilles heel and a massive clawed feet. The upper body details were more alarming to take in. The ears were cropped like a Doberman's. They stood straight up, and the tufts atop of them were a few inches tall on their own. When it snapped its head to the side to acknowledge us, it laid its ears flat back on the top of its head. He was all business when he did that. I got a perfect profile view of his face, and it had a rigid, straight cheekbones which led away from its face and towards a gigantic muzzle. The sockets around its eyes looked incredibly human, and the eye itself was probably the size of a racquetball, and it was not reflecting light from our scene or headlights. It was definitely glowing yellow/green. The muzzle could have been a foot long, and it had a big old shiny, maybe wet dog nose at the end. Its mouth was partially open when it turned its head, and then it looked like it swallowed. I only caught a second or two long glimpse of its mouth. Its gums were black, and it had dark, maybe purple tongue. Its teeth were bright white, and it had 2 pairs of fangs. They were not incisors or inside of its mouth. It had a pair of fangs that sat at the front and outside of its mouth, and at the front and bottom of its mouth. With its mouth closed, you could still see them, and these teeth were designed for puncturing, ripping, and tearing off of. Its incredible shoulders were its arms, which were jacked and almost twice as long as its legs. The claws of this creature ended around where its knees were, and its claws had to be 5 to 6 inches long. The claws were attached to the digits at the end of the hand, and did not look like anything like a paw. Its forearms were longer than what his humerus would be, and made up the majority of its arm itself. Above the elbow were its biceps, which, if I had to guess, were somewhere around 40 inches around and well-defined. Watching it stand so fluently made sense looking back, as it obviously used the power in its legs and did a sort of push-up with its gigantic long arms to spring into position. The thing that has always bothered me, though, is the little head tilt it did. I got the sense of dread before he stood up, like my mind and body knew something bad was going to happen before it did, and I didn't know what. Almost like telekinetic, if that makes any sense. I just got this feeling from this werewolf-like thing. I know you mean well, move on, and I was never here. Then it vanished. The expression on its face wasn't anger or a scowl, it was more of a look of indifferent annoyance. Like it was saying, "Aw man, who the hell are you? I've got to deal with this now?" Then it rolled to the right, it bent its legs, and just leapt straight up and over the hedgerows and guardrails. Didn't do a run to start or even a squat that much. He just turned and jumped. And when he did, he kept his body elongated. So, from a standing position, it went 6 to 7 feet in the air, and far enough in back of and over the bush not to be easily seen anymore. Another easy 10 to 15 feet. After that, my partner punched it, and we drove fairly recklessly to get off the gravel road and back to one with at least streetlights. I would have never asked him to slow down. We both wanted to get out of there, and we fled with a sense of urgency. I've seen many canines stand on their hind legs. I've never seen a hellhound sprint with precision over a guardrail and brush that messed with my head, other than that night. After a lot of research, I came up with the legend of the Michigan Dogman and the Beast of Bray Road. The only problem is I live in Connecticut, and we are not known for our Bigfoot sightings or wacky cryptozoological stories. The town of Pomfrey, Connecticut, which was close by to the town we were in, does have some interesting wolf lore and a park named Wolf Den State Park. The short version of the story is that General Israel Putnam, yes, the General Putnam, the Revolutionary War semi-hero, killed the last wolf in Connecticut, in the wolf den, I think at around 1764, before the conflict. The story, as I recall, wolves in Connecticut were hell on livestock, and the settlers had killed the last of the she-wolf's cubs and her mate. So the story goes, she started slaughtering livestock and stalking and attacking people. Not to eat, but to kill. One morning she massacred over 70 sheep, and Israel Putnam was tasked with putting her down. He tracked her to her den and did so. The wolf den is still there to this day. There have been Dogman sightings close by in Massachusetts and even legitimate gray wolf sightings. In the last decade or so, wolves have been finding their way down New England from Canada. I don't know what I believe in, and it's certainly not werewolves, but I totally saw something that really looked like a werewolf just that one time. My partner and I had worked together in that ambulance for 3 years at the time of the sighting. We knew each other pretty well, and as alarming the events that transpired in front of us were, there was something off about Ron for weeks after the sighting. The ride back to operations, we just could not believe what we had seen and exchanged things like, "What the fuck was that?" And, "I don't know, asshole, I saw the same thing you did." And, "Did that really happen? I can't believe that just happened." After we fueled our truck, we punched out, and the next I saw him was Thursday night for our last tour of the week before our 3 days off. When I showed up, he notified me that he had called dispatch and requested to be posted in downtown the entire night, not wanting to leave the confines of the inner city. Not an unusual or odd request. Some people prefer busier assignments, and we definitely did, but it became a habit with Ron. And as weeks and months went by, we were never sent out of the suburbia for a call after dark for the rest of our 5 total years together. I thought I was just as shaken up as he, but something was sitting sideways with the way he was acting, and every time I approached him to talk about it, he would immediately dismiss the topic and be stoic and quiet or change the subject entirely, leaving an odd vibe I'd never felt around my work brother before. Absolutely nothing changed about our job performance or our friendship, but after a while I suspected my partner had either seen something like this before, or had seen something that I hadn't that night of the sighting. After years of patiently prodding and asking him what was wrong, he finally disclosed what was bothering him so much about the sighting. And it turned out to be the latter. 9 years later, I have his permission to relay his point of view. Our ambulance was a 2008 AEV box truck. It had 13-foot clearance, and Ron is 6'5", I'm 5'10", but when seated in the cab, sitting up and facing forward, the top of our heads were probably somewhere around 7.5 to 8 feet off the deck. As a passenger, you can't see an awful lot out of the mirrors, but as a driver, you can see down the side of the truck and pretty well behind you. There was also a mobile data terminal that controlled several functions, including lights, sirens, scene lights, dispatch response, and it also had a four-scene camera that showed backup camera, which was mounted on the top of the back pointing down at an angle. 2 side cameras which covered the outside ends of the ambulance, and a patient compartment camera, which was the only one that recorded. Remember that, guys. There's only one that records. I don't want to hear any comments. Why didn't they play the videos if there was cameras? Anyway, back to it. When you were in the driver's seat, you had pretty much all 360 degrees covered. As a passenger, the most you could see out of the mirrors was jack shit. Especially since Ron was a giant and we fought over the mirror angles all the time. As relayed to me by him, Ron said that when he completely stopped, he was looking at the werewolf in front of us, but had a pit in his stomach convincing him that he wasn't actually looking at us when he turned his head. My eyes were fixated in front of us on Wolfman number 1. Ron trusted his instincts, and which I did not notice him doing because I was busy trying not to piss myself. Already had the MTD angled right at him and started cycling through the cameras and turned the side and rear scene lights on. The scene lights aren't the emergency lights. Scene lights are those bright white blue-hued LED lights that are so bright you could probably land a space shuttle from orbit with them. When he did that, he noticed that our friend in front of us was in fact not alone. Ron caught a glimpse of two of them behind us and one coming up on my side of the ambulance. The two behind us he described as coyote tan and on all fours, standing right in what would be our blind spot. The way the camera in the back is angled, he said all he could see was the tops of their heads and the tops of their torsos, their arms and shoulders, and their massive pawed hands. He described them exactly, was the first one and described except with a color variation. When he turned the scene lights on, they bolted to the right side of the road out of view of the camera. This is where it gets a little creepier. After watching their shadow and movements going to the right toward the tree line and brush, Ron cycled the MTD monitor to the starboard side camera, hoping to catch them to see if they were going to advance towards us or run into the brush. Mind you, this is all happening quick and in a matter of seconds. When he cycled the camera, what he saw was another Dogman. This one was on its hind legs and blacker than the blackest black, so massive it was filling the entire monitor, and with its left hand was trying to open the door in the patient compartment area. Ron had hit the scene lights and cycled the camera and lost sight of the other two. As he couldn't see too much from the camera view, he looked in the passenger side mirror and said when he did, the black Dogman looked right back at him with its yellow eyes and grinned at him. He did see the coyote tan Dogman leap over the brush behind the grinning one. He told me, "Danny, if you rolled your window down and reached your arm out, you guys could have shook hands." When he told me this, almost a decade after the incident, my blood ran cold again. He didn't discuss it for years, and all this time I had no idea one was less than 5 feet behind me to my right shoulder. He said the grinning Dogman was a sinister-looking son of a bitch. It was clearly trying to stealthily open the patient compartment door on the right side of the bus. Luckily, the locks engaged when the vehicle's in motion. When it was staring at him in the mirror with a toothy grin, it moved its head and saw the Dogman we initially spotted jump over the brush and then followed suit. My partner said it stopped grinning and almost looked like it was having a chuckle with itself. Honestly, it looked like an asshole. Turned to the right and jumped over the guardrail with the rest of his pack. As we drove away, I rolled my window down, and we did hear very loud, almost like chirping or yapping. It was almost like the sounds hyenas make. When I did that, Ron said, "Roll that back up. What the fuck is the matter with you?" as we sped away. The whole event couldn't have lasted more than a minute and a half from when we first spotted him at 100 feet down the dark road. Knowing my partner's side of the story now after all of these years, what bothers me the most now is, which was probably bothering him for so long, is where did the other three come from? And what was their plan? What if someone was alone in a Prius or a Mini Cooper or something? They'd be wolf shit. Were they out on a prowl just looking to ambush motorists, screw with people? They were so intelligent to move in the blind spots and had a distraction in front like a classic ambush. After having thought, I settled my nerves over the years. Now I have so many more questions I'm afraid I will never have answers to. That's what my partner swears happened that night we saw the wolf beast on Pumpkin Hill Road in a sleepy little corner of Connecticut in our ambulance. So guys, as I'm hoping you guys can see why I included this terrifying encounter. Not only is it absolutely friggin' terrifying, but because of that last couple of questions. Those last questions. If only Brenda Hamilton or Dr. Shaw or anyone could have heard these last questions. Maybe it would have saved their lives. Where did the other three come from? What was their plan? What if I was someone alone in a Prius or a Mini Cooper? There'd be wolf shit. Were they out on the prowl just looking to ambush motorists? Screw with people. They were so intelligent to move into the blind spots and had a distraction in front like a classic ambush. It's kind of crazy that the good doctor of Georgia, her car was on one side of the road, engine running, door open, and she was found in a ditch some feet away. Doesn't make sense, does it? But it does. It really does. Because she was ambushed. I think also Brenda Hamilton was ambushed. I think, or maybe she just came stumbling upon it and it had killed that nutria, but I really don't think that nutria had anything to do with it. I think she was stalked. I think these things watched her for a while and then stalked her. Unfortunately, she paid the ultimate price, as did the doctor. As did Tony Aarons and Amber Miller. So, as you can see, the comparison is pretty intense. From the attacks to the cover-ups. They all fit together like a puzzle piece, very tight. It's creepy. Very creepy. And I don't like it. You guys shouldn't either. We really should not like this. That they keep this stuff from us. Because we, the people, are this country. This is our country. This is not the government's country. Yes, it is theirs. They're people of America. But they don't have any more rights than we do. They think they do, but they don't. They're just playing something in the swamp, you know? Playing our fearless leaders in the capitals of our states, the capital of this great country. Yet, they are nothing more than we. Human beings, Americans. Same rights. Just because they wear a tie and lie all day does not give them any more power than us. They are our employees. We pay their frickin' salaries. They should tell us the truth. But they won't because they're dickheads. I don't think anybody deserves to get attacked by the Dogman, but I think the majority of these assholes deserve to get scared by the Dogman. Put them in a Prius. Send them down a dark, scary road. Almost ambushed by Dogmen. Flanking them the whole night. Assholes. I don't care anymore. I don't care. I'm going to speak loudly about my disdain for the government. And I saw in a couple comments that the one guy, I don't know, Jeff Bell, thinks it's his business because I haven't shared what happened with my meeting last week. Said I'm making it up. No, I'm not making it up, Jeff Bell, you asshole. You can unsubscribe because I really don't care. It's my business. And when it's done, I will share what happened. And I will share my theory on why it happened. Other than that, piss off. Not everybody else, but him, just for being a jerk off. But that's enough of that. Personal assault. Be careful, everyone. Just be careful out there. Because we have two enemies. We have two things that want to get us. The government. And these friggin' creatures that lurk in the shadows of the woods. Which is more dangerous? I don't know. At least when I see a Dogman or a Sasquatch, I know their intent. Well, possibly. But I have a good idea what their intent is. When I see a politician, I don't. I don't know what he's thinking. Christ, he probably doesn't know what he's thinking. Anyway, be safe, guys. With that, I'm going to bid you farewell.